Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Under the Hood Ask a Pro. My name's Tony, where we are live every Thursday at 3 o'clock to answer your automotive questions. So feel free. This video is going to be kind of short. We have a lot of stuff going on in the shop. Need to get back to work. So if you have any questions, ask them now, and I'll get to them in just a little bit. If you have a friend or family member that has any car problems, comment their name. Let them watch this video. If they don't have any questions this week, next week I'll get to them, or tune in next week and I'll answer them live here on the channel. So 3 signs that you can tell there's something wrong with your air conditioning, that it may need to be serviced, other than, of course, you're turning it on and it's not blowing cold. The first one would be, I would say, airflow. So you start up the car, you turn on your fan, and you hear the fan moving, but you're not getting a lot of volume or air out of the car. And that could be because your cabin air filter is dirty. Not every car has a cabin air filter, but a lot of the newer ones do. And you may not be aware you have a cabin air filter, and it may be really dirty. That's the responsibility as a repair shop to find that out for you. And basically what the cabin air filters does, if you've been watching our videos for the past 3 weeks, we've been talking about air conditioning. I showed you some in the dash items. So in a cabin air filter is just a filter that's for the HVAC system, so for the heat and the air conditioning. And that filter filters pollen and dust and debris from the road. So depending on your driving conditions or your environment or where you live, especially here in Lexington, if you've noticed the cars and all the pollen and everything blooming, those filters can get restricted, almost to a point where it'll actually block off the airflow, and the blower motor can't force any air because it can't suck any air in. So, and it's, depending on the car, can be a somewhat easy task to check. I'll show you on one of these cars out here. If you park underneath a tree, you have pine needles that fall in the car, there's a good chance your filter is going to restrict or become dirty faster than most cars, because where your car draws in that fresh air is right by your wiper blade. So if you have a bunch of debris that falls on that constantly, it can shorten the life of the cabin air filter. Second sign you may have a problem with your air conditioning that you may not be aware of is if you notice your floorboard's getting wet. Mainly on most cars, probably the passenger floorboard. There's some Fords and some Chryslers where you may notice on the driver's side. That could be from the evaporator drain, restricted or not draining to the outside of the car. So evaporator core is not only cooling the air, it's relieving moisture from the air, which is another reason why you need your air conditioning to work in the wintertime for defrost, because we want that air to have no moisture in it to defrost the windows. But as far as air conditioning goes, it's cooling down. We're removing the moisture from the air, so we have water. And what that does, it goes through a box and is drained outside of the car. If your cabin air filter is dirty and those needles and debris and leaves get down into that heater box, or you don't have a cabin air filter and that stuff gets into the bottom of the box, it can actually plug that hole. And if that happens, that water has nowhere to go and will build up. So you may notice floorboard being wet. You could also, in severe conditions, if you build up enough water in there, you can hear some sloshing in the dash as you make turns, and that's just that water going from side to side. What you don't want is that water, it can get into the blower motor and damage it. It can get to the blower resistor or module and damage that. Now we're talking about an expensive repair. Normally we can clean out a drain for fairly cheap, but if we have to replace some components, that can get pretty expensive. So, and of course the last one is smells and noises, and that goes with anything and everything with the car. If you start up the car and you turn on the air conditioning, you have this really terrible burning smell. That could be from maybe a clutch burning up. If you hear a knocking or rattling noise, could also be from a compressor failure. You may hear like a clicking on, clicking off, like a fast cycling. That could be what we call short cycling from the AC system, and that could be because the refrigerant is low. If it's low, that indicates a leak, and you want to get that repaired. If not, you're going to have to constantly charge the system every year. On this Ford over here, I was going to pull the cabin air filter, I got a little behind on time, but generally speaking, on most cars, your cabin air filter is going to be, let me tighten this up. I'm having tripod issues today too, so if the camera falls down, I apologize. Most times it's going to be behind your glove box. If you're lucky, on most cars, it's just going to be a little panel you can pull, or this part of the glove box. On this particular model, we have to pull some of the dash out and the whole glove box just to even gain access to that. But a lot of times, that's where your cabin air filter is going to be. When I was talking about the AC drain, your floorboard, well, you'll notice your floorboard being wet. A lot of times with the AC drain, and I'll show you on this car here, it is going to be right there, that little nub sticking out. And so as we produce moisture, it's going to start dripping out of that little tube. So that tube is also where we check if we have the evaporator core leaking. Like 2 weeks ago, we showed us doing the dash job with the evaporator core. So if there's any dye, it's going to mix in with that water, that's moisture coming out of the system, and then we're going to see a trace with our dye gun. Another thing, and it's what we actually just worked on this car here. So I'll start off with an example of the system was low on charge. This dryer actually has this plastic housing that encases it. Well, as this line is on the low side, so it's probably about 30 degrees, so it gets wet when it's outside, so all this water pools up in the bottom and actually will rust out the bottom of the dryer itself. So we had to replace this, not only because we had the system open and contaminated, but it was a leak. So we had to fix that component. Another thing we had was the main concern, and that was the AC compressor was failing. See if you can hear this. It just locked up, and if we see if we can't get a good view in here. Inside of here should be nice and shiny and clean, and well, we're not gonna pick it up. It's black. So this compressor came apart. When compressors come apart, it sends metal throughout the system, and this is the orifice tube on this particular car, and it is absolutely plugged with just debris and metal. So this AC system was just totally contaminated. We actually had to flush it, and here's just some of the junk that came out of the just the evaporator core. The other components we had trouble capturing and for me to show you. So that's, you know, the failure you do not want in the AC system is that compressor coming apart. So this customer came to us and said, you know, I want you to just install an AC compressor, and as you can hear it, it's shot. So if we would have just installed that compressor, put some oil in it, charge the system, it'd start it up, it probably wouldn't have lasted a week. Actually, it probably would never blow cool, because that's totally restricted. The orifice is just, the screen's plugged, there's metal throughout the system. Even if we just replaced this and then flushed the system, it wouldn't have lasted. So be sure, if you are having AC repairs done, take it to a shop that knows what they're doing and how to repair cars. So if anyone has any questions, for the tripod is officially gone for, so I just lost a leg. So if anyone has any questions, I guess this afternoon we'll be fixing tripods here along with all of our AC repair. So if no one has any questions, or if you have ideas for future lives next week, couple big things this week. So Monday was our general manager's 19th anniversary of working here. Mine was yesterday, for 16 years of full-time. So we have a lot of experience here. So if you are having any car problems, if you want some unbiased opinions on car repair, comment them below. I'll get to them. And of course, if you need anything, just let us know. Thanks for watching. Drive safe. We'll see you next week. Bye.